This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the first OneAbility monthly member forum online, and really pleased to have such great attendance this morning and to be able to bring our members together and to share some stories about how things are going right now for them and some of the learnings along the way, and then look forward to being able to hear from some of the other folks on the call as we move forward this morning. So this is a pretty interesting time in our history, and we at OneAbility are just looking at how we can best support the membership as we go forward. We don't often get to all come together, and so we thought this would be a way to support what's happening across everything that everyone's doing. And we know that lots of the members are having some really interesting experiences and pivoting in really interesting ways. So it's just a really great opportunity for us to learn from each other, share, and look at how we move forward. So I'm going to start us off with an acknowledgement of the traditional territory that we're on, which is Coast and Strait Salish territory. And I know that I'm really grateful, particularly right now, to be in such a beautiful place and to be able to have what I need when I need it, and to be safe. So I just wanted to start with that acknowledgement, and then to introduce our three panelists today. So we have Chris Wright joining us from Pisces, Karina Kenigsberg from Power to Be, and Alana Verville from Move Adapted Fitness. And so each of the three of them are going to share a little bit about what's going on in their organizations and how they've been evolving to COVID. And we're going to then have an opportunity to do some Q&A and to hear from you as well in terms of how things are going for each of you in your organizations. But we wanted to kick it off with a little bit of a icebreaker, a virtual icebreaker, if you will. So knowing that we are probably all of us on a lot of Zoom or conference calls all day and not getting a lot of time to kind of get up and play, we wanted to kick off with a little bit of play. So this is some Scrabble tiles, as you can see. And so each of the three of us are going to pick a letter and we're going to do a movement, and we encourage you to do the movement at home as well, just to kind of kick us off and have a little bit of a play date. So my letter is going to be C, and I'm going to pick the movement of crawl. And you can either get down on the ground and do this, or you can just do front crawl. So I'll just demonstrate front crawl and try not to hit ceiling as my arms go up. So at home, hopefully you can try this as well. And so we'll just do 10 seconds of front crawl, and then I'm going to flip it over to Alana to do the next movement.
Awesome. Okay, so I choose M, and we're gonna do some marching. So you can either get up and do some marching or seated marching. I'm gonna stand because all I do is sit all day long, and I'm gonna focus on my legs. So nice and easy. Chest is up, marching back and forth. Get those arms moving with ya. Nice job, guys. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, over to Karina.
Hi, I chose the letter H, and I will say that maybe I'm not alone, but I'm definitely missing hugs. And so our stretch is going to involve a self-hug. Give yourself a really good self-hug for 5 seconds there. Stretch it out, put all your emphasis in there, feel all those people you want to be hugging right now that you can't be. And now switch sides so the other one's on top. Give yourself a nice good hug again, good thoughts, good wishes.
Hugs.
Hugs to you all. And to you, Chris.
Yeah, so I picked the letter D, and that is because I think this is something that we all need to do every now and again just to shake off everything, and that is to dance. And I know we have no music, but that is also amazing, so you can just get up and just like dance however you want to dance. Shake it out. Whew. And then back to you, Andrea.
Awesome, thanks everyone. So that was our little virtual icebreaker to get us started. And then we're going to, I'm going to attempt to hide the slides so we can see people. And we're going to kick off with Alana sharing a little bit about how things are going for her at Move and what has been happening. So I just want to do a check. If you have any tech issues, if you can write us a note in the chat box so that we know and can work with you to fix it. But hopefully everyone can see Alana. And over to you, Alana.
Awesome. Is it bad that I'm out of breath from all that? I need to move more. So my name is Alana, and I'm the executive director for Move Adapted Fitness. And I've been in that role for the past 3 years now. I did a co-op with Move, and then I just kind of moved my way up, and now here I am. So definitely interesting times right now. Move had to close its doors March 16th. So we closed to we shut down all programming. Clients weren't able to come anymore. And we had to really brainstorm what it was going to look like going forward and what was going to happen to Move. And how our biggest kind of thing of all is how can we support our community? What can we do to help our community in this time? Because Move, it's about, physical activity and improving exercise and all those kinds of things. But I think above all, it's community, it's those mental health supports, it's having someone there that understands what you're going through, is feeling part of a connection. And for some people, Move is all that they have. They don't have family here, they don't have that support. So it was really hard for me to shut that down from people and to say, like, you can't come here and access that anymore above the physical activity side of it. So it was kind of, how can we create community and awareness at this time and still create some kind of, where people feel like they're involved. They feel like they haven't had to give that up no matter what. And so how we've kind of changed that focal point is we've started offering online services. So it's called Move at Home. So it's our tele-rehab programming. So people can sign up for at-home exercise programming, or we can do video conferencing like this and do one-on-one sessions that way. We've bumped up our social media presence quite a bit. Me and my president of Move, our board member, took a marketing course to learn how to use Instagram. And I thought I knew how to use Instagram, but I didn't. And so, just taking this time to really improve on my skills and kind of what that looks like going forward. So we've created a social media plan basically where we post 3 to 5 days a week. And it changes, if it's member shout outs or blog posts, workout videos. So every Friday we put out a workout video of either a volunteer or anyone really that wants to film themselves doing a workout for people to join in. So that's kind of a free service that we've provided. The blog posts are topics that people would find interesting, how to stay motivated at home, how to keep active, self-care, all those kinds of things, just to give people a little bit more information and involvement. And kind of challenges we've seen is, so now our AGM is at the end of this month, and so we can't skip it, and so now we have to host it online. So that comes with all other challenges of, okay, how are we going to do that? How are we going to engage people? We were able to get a speaker. Are people going to be able to use Zoom and understand how it works so that it works for them, so they can be involved? All those things that come with changing to online. What else have we? So we've shifted all of that online now. Kind of other challenges are, so when we reopen, what's that going to look like? Am I going to have any volunteers left, to reopen? How do I engage my volunteers to stay on with us when a lot of them have moved home for the summer, are, working full time now, or will be working full time and don't have time to volunteer anymore? What's that going to look like? And so that's definitely going to be a huge kind of challenge I see us having when we reopen. Things like having to shift, are we going to have to switch to an appointment basis, reduced hours, kind of all those things that we're thinking of. Another kind of challenge I'm seeing, like going ahead, is grant writing. So we applied for 2 grants during this time, and both have been put on hold until all of this is over. So kind of a fear I have is going forward, okay, right now there's not a lot of funding, but then say in a year or so, what's that going to look like? You know, a grant that I've applied for in the past, maybe they don't have the same kind of funding anymore because of all of this has happened. So, you know, how will this affect us, you know, 2 years, 3 years down the road, because we don't have access to the same kind of funding anymore. And then opportunity, so kind of finishing more positively, like I have just taken this time to really get things done that I never had time to do before. So I have been really busy in just getting us to the point so that when we do reopen, we will be as successful as we can be. So that's, you know, marketing, implementing policies. I'm looking into getting us a donor database software. So just all these things that I'd never had time to research or go into and look because I just didn't have the time before. So really taking this time to turn it into something that's positive because I have the time now to do it. And just kind of looking at the big picture going forward. You know, what will that look like, and how, you know, we had to cancel all of our fundraisers that we had. Like we were joking that Move was doing so well and we were so impressed, and then all this kind of happened, and then you just have to reshift and rethink and you know, kind of think outside of the box. And you know, I don't feel as stressed now than when I did when we first closed, because we've had time to think about big picture and what that's going to look like. And I think that's a big part of it, is not getting so bogged down on like right now and what's happening right now. It's kind of like, it'll be okay going forward. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Alana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really great to watch Move pivot over the last few weeks, and some of the innovative things that you've been doing. So really appreciating that. And we've been sharing that out in the member newsletter, and hopefully
Yeah.
people are following you on your social media and capturing things that way.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's marketing. I have a whole new like respect for. It's definitely, it's tough. Like that's a whole other position that like, but it's, you know, I kind of figure now people are online more now than they have been before. And so, you know, that's the best way to reach people. We have weekly newsletters that go out, Facebook posts regularly, just, you know, shoving it down people's throats almost, in a way where it's like, I'm still here for you. And you know, let's still create community, even though it looks different, and know that I'm still like available to talk. It's just not face to face, right?
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for that. Anyone have any burning questions that we want to ask Alana before we move on to Karina's presentation? Nothing right out of the gate? Okay, we will move on to Karina then. So I'm just going to go back and share the PowerPoint. So just give me 1 second to load that. Okay, Karina, just tell me when you want me to move things ahead.
Sure, that's great to start. Thank you. Yeah, so for those that don't know me, I'm Karina, and I'm the Director of Programs and Impact with Power to Be. And we do nature-based opportunities, connecting people into the outdoors, being physically active, work with lots of you, thankfully, in our partnership models. A big base of where we provide a lot of our services is on a with one-to-one individuals, any range from children, youth, young adults, and adults. And then we also have a big component where we're working with community groups as well. So with that in mind, you know, like everyone here, COVID really shook things up and changed things, and really made us kind of flip how we think, what we do, and how we're going to continue to reach out and connect to our community in a way that meets the needs of what people are facing right now, and that might have to be different than what we typically offer. So with that in mind, we were really thinking about to showcase what matters, and really thinking about trying to keep the language simple and clean and clear. And there's aspects of that that is going to tie into a fundraising campaign, and then there's aspects of that that's really about community matters and let's participate in community initiatives. So with that in mind, our focus right now is really looking at community, nature, and then the power to be, opportunities for the future. You can change the slide. And so we're still open. However, it looks really different. And we've had some really tough conversations. We have a team of about 40-ish people, both in Victoria and Vancouver. And I have to give credit to our executive leadership team for trying really hard to keep us all employed. And so what we have done is there have been a couple people that have self-selected to go and support their families. We have, some staff who also have some children and youth with complex needs. And so with that in mind of the support in the government, that was one of the shifts. And then strategically, one of the other ways that we've been able to keep our organization sustained is by switching everyone, the whole organization, all the staff to a 4-day work week. That's really helped us to save over $100,000. So that's a massive savings over, a 4-month period. Whether we stay like that, continue, it's tricky. It's a Friday, and I think for those that have partnered with Power to Be, Fridays, Saturdays are typically our peak season days. But we may come back to that as things get lifted within the restrictions. So we've reached out to our community, and our typical programs are paused, and we kind of reevaluate every 2 weeks, and then make sure that we have some kind of connection to Alana's point, reaching out, whether it's through our newsletter, through some of our online activities that we've been creating, or also really, calling over 200 people and having those phone calls. And what we're realizing is that is just so valuable and important. Some conversations lasted over an hour, some were, 15 minutes. Some people are doing great. Some people say, hey, after a Zoom call, it's the only thing I'm looking forward to. And then I close my computer, and then that face of isolation is the thing that they're looking at for the rest of the day. So that it's really hard to be able to be the support that I think we all want to. Power to Be, even though we're nature-based, it's really just the vessel to connection. So what we've also had to understand is people were looking in and saying, well, your programs are closed technically, and we've been saying they're not canceled, they're postponed. And so I think that language shift helped people understand that we weren't giving up on our programs. We needed to reimagine what that could look like. And so our fundraising events, which are, our big ways that we're bringing in funds, because Power to Be, 98% of our funds come from private sources in our fundraising campaigns. So our board of directors and other stakeholders externally said, what are you doing with 40 people? And you have a team of 18 staff who aren't technically running programs. So we had to start. At first, we were really excited to do the things that Alana was mentioning, of like get our house in order and clean things, organize things, get our curriculum dialed, get our policies and procedures. And we were busy, we were rolling. And then it was like, wait a minute, we may not open again. We may open again. So what can we do right now about right now? And so we have shifted about 7 to 8 of our program staff, redistributed into other areas of our organization. So they too are learning about marketing and about data management and about showcasing and our message, and also stewarding our donors. And so it was a tricky thing for some program staff to have to figure out, okay, how do you shift your focus, shift your priorities? Does that mean we're not going to connect to our participants? And that's not the case. It's just about keeping us alive is the priority right now, and keeping our community connected is the priority right now. So with that, we've redistributed both Victoria and Vancouver pieces. Silver lining with, within our organization and all this digital connection is I've never seen if anyone else has regional programs, I've never seen our regions work more closely together. There's no more of just talking to Victoria staff. It's about the person and the right expertise, and seeing the synergy between our Victoria and Vancouver regions is phenomenal. They're getting projects done together. The creativity is coming out. They're really propelling some of the initiatives forward. So that's definitely been an amazing thing to see as a silver lining. And then we've also developed, we've always kind of had a Catalyst for Good initiative, which really means do something that moves inclusion or supports our community beyond us. So Power to Be exists to be beyond Power to Be. And so really listening to what are the emerging needs in that community, what can we do right now. So the big things that have come up is we have some partners with Backpack Buddies. They distribute food to local schools. And so again, to some of the other people that work with schools, that's kind of shifted, but those families are still in need. They needed drivers, they needed vans. We have drivers, we have vans. So we've pivoted. So we're dedicating a chunk of our time to, and our staff, we had to share only those that are comfortable because it does potentially put them in a risk of being exposed. So we've got some parameters in place for that, but it really has been exciting to listen to what the community's needs are. What are those assets? What are those resources? And where can Power to Be shift some of our priorities right now to support what are the current needs right now? And food security and helping people that are socially isolated are definitely the aspects. We had a shipment going up to Gold River. We have folks in Squamish, regions on the mainland and the Sea to Sky corridor, and people need food and they need it now. So that's been one of the resources that we're putting our time and energy into. And then future, we can switch to the next slide. And then some of the pieces that we'll be, really looking at is what are some of those shifts and changes that are happening, and how do we need to shift and change our parameters, our approach, what risk management standards do we need to learn to be able to provide this kind of opportunity for people. But for now, as far as our participants goes, because we have, 1,100 plus participants in both Vic and Van, and phenomenal community groups. Many of you are all a part of Power to Be in one way and a part of OneAbility in another way. And so our big piece around the participate side of our campaign is coming up with digital activities. And so we've been doing our own, and then we've also been showcasing yours and other organizations. So it's really about self-guided exercises, because there is a trend right now that people are feeling a little bit inundated with the technical online platforms. So we're trying to come up with ways that people can do self-facilitated activities with their family, also recognizing that parents don't always have time to support their kids to do the activities. So we're trying to be as creative as possible. And again, amazing to see what the staff are coming out with that you never would have imagined before. We had one of our staff reading Where the Wild Things Are in a really funny hat. And so many people really love that. So just trying to see what are people missing, and they were missing one of our staff's voice. And so we're like, let's put together Paul reading on a weekly basis. And so, yeah, some of those pieces are coming online. And if there is resources that you guys have that you want us to share, please forward them on to us. And we can also add it to our campaign page, which is about that participation side. And there's the link there if you want to see what some of the activities have been thus far. As I mentioned, the one-to-one check-ins are huge. So if you haven't had time to call people, see how they're doing, reach out to volunteers, reach out to your partners, reach out to your participants, whether that's 2 people or 200 people. It's so phenomenal to just, be able to have that contact, and people are really craving and itching for it right now. And just to figure out the right rhythm, the sweet spot of not inundating people too much, but really just wanting that ultimate connection, because that's what we're all about, is really forming community and forming connection. You can switch slides. And as far as future state goes, we as well had to just kind of shift how we're fundraising. So our events are very physical. They are typically an adventure race called Power to Play. And then another one that's more of a gala format. And so I don't know if we're ever going to come back to that model, to be honest. I mean, large scale events is something that we have to redesign and look at. So right now we're looking at, is there something that isn't typically being done in the community that we can do that's creative? So we're just reimagining our events and really funneling everything into this one campaign, knowing that our costs are hopefully going to go down by, reducing our spending. And then really working with community to develop new standards. So sitting on committees like this and collectives, working with your partners that have different skill sets around risk management and parameters for reintegration after COVID. For us being a nature-based organization, how do we reintegrate in being in nature? How do we continue to be stewards of the land, but also protect our people who are vulnerable and who are living with various barriers? how do we work with different sectors? So sitting with, and aligning our services together, but also looking to the tourism sector as well as the park sector to help us and work collaboratively so that we're all really helping our people, because in the end, our participants don't know if they're going to a regional park, a national park, or a local park. They're going to a park. And so I think the more that we can align within our sectors, the more valuable it'll be for our participants moving forward. Trying to now think about tangible, so things people can feel and touch. So we're trying to create some packages maybe we can deliver or people can pick up for some activity packages. Again, very welcome if any of you have resources that you would like us to share that can be printed and created in a tangible package. I'm happy to put that together and send it out to our community. So feel free to reach out to me afterwards. And then be prepared for the new normal. So that's kind of the new catchphrase, but I think it's really the case for all of us that it's not going to be cool, we're back to normal, go back to the way things were. It's likely small group settings, one-to-one opportunities, programming every 72 hours so we can clean adequately and be able to manage when people are on our Prospect Lake site, what is that going to look like? So it's really about just pivoting, redesigning, and reopening with a new frame and perspective. Next slide, which I think might be it. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions or thoughts, thank you.
Thanks, Karina. That was great. Lots of changes going on at Power to Be, and good to hear that there's some positives coming out of it in terms of people working together and sort of figuring out some new ways forward, but definitely a lot to navigate in a short period of time. Does anyone have any questions you want to kick off with Karina before we move on to Chris?
I had one more thought to share.
Yeah.
There's a story here, and I think that it takes a lot of time to track everything, but I would also recommend within your organizations, if there's some ways for you to capture what's happening on a weekly basis, the trickies, the silver linings, the opportunities, the ways you've pivoted. I think the non-for-profit sector is going to have an opportunity to really showcase and share the learning lessons that have come from this. So I would really take the time if there's a way that you could somehow track, whether that's a simple survey that you're just tracking information in or having conversations with your co-staff. But there's a pretty impeccable story that's coming from all of this, and maybe even something that we can do within OneAbility to showcase that, because in future times, future issues, we'll look back to this and see some incredible learning opportunities that we can move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Karina. Okay, so no other burning questions right now. We're going to move on to Chris Wright. So Chris from Pisces is going to share what Pisces been up to. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Chris Wright. I am the manager of physical literacy development for Pisces. So that means I manage all of our kids programs. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about Pisces as a whole and as a facility and our community organization, but then also specifically around our adaptive programs as well and some of the challenges that we've kind of encountered with those. So much like Alana, March 16th, 17th, we shut down our facility. And at the end of that week, we had to lay off a number of staff. So overnight, we went from a staff of about 60 to around 9 of the management staff because, there was no program. So a lot of people didn't have work to do. So that's been really interesting, talking to the staff, making sure that they are okay, not just financially, but from a mental health perspective as well. And I know that my full-time staff really struggled with that initially as to what kind of purpose did they have during the day. So just again, checking in with those staff, like Karina said, to make sure that they are doing things. Technically, our facility is still open, but all of our programs and services have been postponed or canceled. So that's really interesting in the fact that we have had to have staff members on site in order to make sure that the facility is still safe and not being broken into. talking to a lot of our recreation center partners, we know that they have had more break-ins because they've had to reduce their staff as well, and they just haven't been able to maintain all of their sites. So again, that's just something that has come out of this, is like, what is that security piece looking like? Fortunately, Camosun College's security has been really good as well, but that's just something to think about. Right now, we're trying to think about what this reintegration strategy is, specifically around summer camps and what they look like. Again, we've been working closely with the recreation centers to follow kind of what their pieces are. The CEO of the recreation, the recreation, what's it, the BCRPA, put some messaging out to Bonnie Henry to see what they can do. So again, following that closely and seeing when we have to make a decision on summer camps. We are lucky in the fact that we are pretty small still and agile, so we can make those decisions very quickly. If the recreation centers say, okay, we cannot do summer camps because of the just scope of what they do, we are then able to maybe work around that and still offer something. But I know, and everybody knows, that's probably going to have to be outside, limited numbers, more staff, cleaning protocols, but we just don't know what they are yet. So that's kind of where my head has been. But at the same time, I also don't want to think about too much about that, because Bonnie Henry could come on the TV today and say everything's changed, right? So again, it's very much thinking on a daily basis with what the government recommendations are and what we can do. Having said that, we are, again, trying to think of what this reintegration strategy would be. So right now, designing what signage needs to be around the facility and what language needs to be incorporated into that. Temporary decals, like what goes on the elevator. Do we only allow 2 people in the elevator? If we allow 2 people in the elevator there, but somebody has, uses a wheelchair and they have a parent and a support worker, then can they go in the elevator? What are all these different things, and what are the caveats and what are the gray areas to all of these different elements? So that's what we're thinking about right now in order to be ready to go when we are allowed to open up our programs and services again. I have been making some online content and trying to, much like Alana, trying to figure out what the niche is for that. There is so much online content coming out from people that you risk just getting lost in so much noise. So 2 things I've been doing or trying to do, and I actually had this thought this morning, is instead of creating the content and putting it out there, from an adaptive perspective, a lot of people are just putting games out there with no adaptations or modifications for them. So can I then see what's out there and then provide those modifications, how to make it easier, how to make it more difficult? The challenge with that, and one of the challenges that we have, and one of the reasons why we haven't done any virtual programming, is because we don't know, like, a huge part of what we do in order to include everybody and to get people to have success is to modify the equipment that they use. So that might be using a larger ball or whatever it may be. We don't know what people have at home, right? So if I say, oh, you're throwing and catching a tennis ball, but you're not having success, do you have anything larger that you could do? They may not have anything larger, right? They may not have balloons or a beach ball handy or whatever. So what are those challenges? To pivot on that and to think of it in a positive way and to think of it and how we can maybe do this going forward is to use funding that we have in order to provide, like Karina was saying, maybe provide little equipment bags for all of our community members, or especially our adaptive community members who may be immunosuppressed, right? So are there juggling scarves in there? Is there a beach ball? Can they have this little bag that we give them, and then we know what they have, and then we can adapt those activities virtually because we know the stuff that they have, rather than right now they may not have anything. So that's kind of the back and forth of things that we've been doing. I have also been trying to, from a larger perspective, been trying to filter out some of the online content that is out there to let people know what engaging and kind of quality physical activity content is that is out there, and that you can use screens for physical activity. So especially for school-age children or for teachers who are looking to give their students different things to do, what is the quality physical activity screen time activities that are out there? So there are a number of local organizations doing great stuff. So Kenzen Sports Karate do online karate lessons. I think it's 1 o'clock every day, which is really cool. Obviously, Move are doing great things. The Canucks Autism Network are doing great things. So there's lots out there. But again, if you're a parent, that can be super overwhelming, or a teacher, or whoever's looking for this stuff. So what does that look like? Also been doing some online professional development or video recording professional development for teachers. So normally we would do a lot on modifications and adaptations to games and activities for teachers during professional development days. There was one coming up in a couple of weeks with the SUK Teachers Association. So they asked all of us who were going to be presenting in person if we could record videos so that they were able to provide that to their teachers. This is an idea that we had had anyway, and we wanted to kind of build up our video resource pieces so that we could share it more easily with the more remote communities that we work with, such as people in Souk or Port Renfrew or the Gulf Islands. And this has allowed us the time to be able to do that, as Alana said. So that's really interesting, but comes with that is a whole video editing piece. So I'm doing a lot of it on my phone. I don't think my phone's ever been used as much as it has been over these last few weeks, with filming videos, editing videos, posting social media pieces as well. Also, just on the social media elements, I've tried to stick to the traditional social media elements of Instagram and Facebook. So we haven't, again, ventured into Zoom from a public standpoint, but we do have a kind of a broader community in terms of some of the other organizations here, as well as a smaller community. It's kind of weird. On the challenges, so I had an email from one of the families that we work with, and they said that they had tried to participate in an online virtual workshop or a virtual dance program. I can't remember exactly what it was, for their individual who has a disability, their child who has a disability. But their comments were that it just moved way too quickly. It was really hard to kind of keep the child engaged with it. There weren't modifications to the activities, kind of all those pieces that I had mentioned before. So again, from an online perspective, how do we keep the quality of our programming and our services and our adaptations to the standard that we want, while again not knowing what not having that interaction with people, right? So it's just this really challenging piece of trying to keep our standard and quality high and the integrity of our programs being active without or through this virtual setting. And it's just a very challenging element. So again, I do see there are a lot of opportunities in the future. Personally, I've taken this as an opportunity to think about, okay, what can we create now that we can utilize in the future? Rather than just putting it out for now, right? Like, what can we actually do to get it out there? And that's not just from a physical literacy standpoint, that's also from a strength and conditioning and personal training standpoint. Like, I've been educating those individuals on social media and Facebook and video editing and whatnot. So yeah, it's a whole organization-wide piece, but something that we have to think about. Just on the organization standpoint as well, with our facility, we're kind of unique in the fact that there's not just us in our facility, there are also 3 or 4 other organizations that work within our facility. So our reopening has to take into account a lot of other people, and again, those relationships that I'm not, our CEO is having those conversations, but it's just another element that you might not think about is, okay, well, how many people are actually in that vicinity, that are inside the space? What do our change rooms look like? What do the bathrooms look like? All of those different elements from a facility standpoint that we have to try and figure out as well. So it's very challenging, but again, I see a lot of positives coming out of it and a lot of innovative ideas. But how do we play tag games or whatnot without the physical touch? Pool noodles, yeah, like different ideas. So unfortunately, just like everybody, we don't really know what the answers are, but we're hoping to listen to everybody else and hopefully come up with some new ideas.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Chris. Yeah, I appreciate the operating of a facility on top of sort of the programming piece. You've got a lot of dynamics at play that you're trying to navigate as you look forward, and we still have so many unknowns. How's it been going in terms of working with some of your existing funding sources? Like, what sort of feedback are you getting from them in terms of leniency around timelines or how funds can be allocated, those types of pieces? How are those playing out for you?
Yeah, Stacey, you're online. I don't know if you want to speak about that. But I know that a lot of the stuff that we had applied for, again, as Alana said, has been postponed or reallocated, right? So they've said, okay, we need to take it away from here and this kind of in-person physical literacy programming to food reallocation or whatever that may be. So yeah, much like Alana said, there's been some postponements in terms of deadlines and whatnot, and they say, yeah, we're still committed to this, but obviously it's not going to happen until then. But also there has been a reallocation. So for example, our tomorrow was supposed to be our family sport and recreation festival. Huge event, takes months to organize, 2,000 or 3,000 people coming to our facility. Obviously can't do that. So what does that look like? The funders have committed to that, and they've committed to that funding. So they said, okay, well, with this, then use that allocated money, because they need to spend it this year as well. Use that allocated money to do something innovative, right? And something different, or how can you still create that same sort of atmosphere, but in a different way? So yeah, so some people have been really great. Others, and understandably, have reallocated their funds to where it's needed most.
Okay, thank you. And Stacey, feel free to jump on if you do want to speak to that. I know I'm on the National Allocation Committee for the Jumpstart Inclusive Play grants. And so we've just started the grant adjudication process without really knowing if the funds will actually roll out the door in the fall, because we don't really know if programming will be going ahead or not. But there's been a number of conversations in terms of like, what does that potentially look like? How does that dock in with the provincial health officer plans, national plans, those types of pieces? So yeah, so many moving pieces right now.
Yeah, I can just echo what Chris said, that we have experienced quite a bit of leniency and flexibility with our funders. And I think the bigger question is really what type of funding will be available in the future. For example, with gaming funding, a lot of our programs that supports have to be delayed. So we still need to check with them to see if we can defer that funding. And will there even be gaming funds available? There'll probably be a lull in that. So there's a lot of questions, and we have heard that there'll be some infrastructure grants coming available from the federal government. So we're trying to get some projects ready, some quotes on some different projects for that. But so far we've experienced really great flexibility and leniency, and it's just really important to keep in touch with our sponsors and donors and make sure that that they know what's happening at PICE and just maintain those relationships.
Great, thank you. Karina, did you want to weigh in on funding?
Sure. I would say I definitely echo what's being said. I think there's a tremendous amount of leniency. A lot of our funding that was quite restricted, there's been good conversations that we can choose to open up that restriction and use it as needed, which has been really helpful. And again, for this year, it's really helpful. I think that both Chris and Alana and Stacey all brought up really good points that where we may notice more of the pinches from COVID is actually in 2021. So as I'm looking at our budget reforecast for our programs with our finance person, that's what we're trying to actually secure and protect, is knowing that 2021 and 2022, we may start seeing things go back to whatever new normal is, but 2021, there just might not be a lot of funding. A lot of people, to Chris's point, have already dedicated those funds, so that's not really as much of the gap, although we're not going to be making as much this year as we have in previous years. But to know that a lot of those funds might not be available in 2021. Some of those organizations may have to reallocate or close down based on certain circumstances. So, but there is quite a bit of surveys that I'm sure many of you have been a part of, and I think is really a valuable 10 minutes to just try and do, because a lot of funders are trying to get a scope of the land of how can they make things easier. And maybe a silver lining is some of these funding opportunities become less restrictive and have less reporting parameters, because I know that that is a big barrier that many of us face. So I'm hopeful that they'll start to see, by just giving organizations what they need and trusting that they'll use the funds in an appropriate way to meet the mandate of the organization, we may start seeing a shift in the way funders are providing some of those opportunities as well.
Super, thank you. And for everyone on the call, we are looking at our May forum to be our next one to be on the 29th of May, and we're looking at having more of a funding discussion then with a few key funders and some fund development folks presenting on that. So you're going to get a survey after today's to weigh in on topics, and we'd love to hear from you if you feel like that's the right topic. If not, we'll certainly pivot and look at some other options. So want this to be of the most benefit to the members. So we really want your feedback on what that can look like. I have some more questions for our panelists, but I also am watching the chat box and would encourage others to either jump in there and ask a question, or to unmute yourself and ask a question. Feel free to put your camera on as well if you want to do that. What do you feel like the real opportunity is within the OneAbility collective to kind of work together in this time? And what are you seeing in terms of ways that you're interacting with other members, or what do you feel your organization can do to support other members? So one of you jump in, it doesn't matter who.
I feel like OneAbility in general has really helped me as someone who was new to non-for-profits and kind of pushed into this role where I had zero clue what I was doing, to then go to these meetings and kind of not feel alone and definitely not feel in competition at all. It's very much supportive environment. I've reached out to lots of people on Power to Be for help for things, and people are always willing to jump on a call with me and just to check in and make sure that all my questions are answered. And like, people have just been so great in general. And then now that this has happened, it's just been times 100. Like I feel like I have so much support within OneAbility that if I have a question, people get back to me right away, or they can provide kind of avenues of people to go to if they're not sure of who I can talk to, or if they can't answer questions for me. So I definitely feel like even things like this, to know that, like, okay, there's 20 people on this call right now and we're all feeling kind of the same thing, and that we want to support each other in this time and know that we're all kind of going through the same thing, is, I think, super helpful for all of us, and especially for me as someone who is new to all of this. I find it really helpful.
Super, thanks, Alana. Karina, did you want to go next?
Sure. I definitely also really value the OneAbility community. The amount, I would say, that I'm referring based on the newsletter components that come in, or getting things from other community members and shifting it over to Andrea and Nicole to put in the newsletter, is very receptive and just a great hub. And I think that that's something that we can really maybe look at elevating the hub that OneAbility is, the place for resources, the place for crossover, the place for sharing ideas, policies, practices, curriculum, whatever that may be. So maybe OneAbility needs to pivot a bit about how do we support what the needs are right now for some of the teams. Chris, I love that you're looking at other, other scenarios that are being posted and seeing how can you contribute versus recreating and adapting. And so maybe there's a leveraging of some of those skill sets of like, hey, I'm putting this together, and instead of us looking at it from the lens of, is this adapted enough, maybe we check in, with Chris and the Pisces team, not to add more work to people's plates. But I think that there's a leveraging point. I know, like, our videos, we're spending like several hours learning how to subtitle and learning how to make, you know, our videos more inclusive and accessible for people. There might be people within OneAbility that's like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. I can do that in 5 minutes. So I think that there might be an element of sharing some more of our areas that we are shifting. We're learning new skills, and maybe some other members have those skills and other members are trying to learn those skills. So I think the survey you're putting together will help with that. I do think a lot of us have tangible resources or items that maybe we could lend, share. So thinking again, could we create a little bit of a partner package where we get to distribute it to all of our participants if they're needed, and then they're getting a package that's got like exercises from Move and activities from Pisces, and you know, I saw the Live It Nation, I think Daniel's on the call, and other people. So is there resources maybe we could create a little bit of a package? Is there, you know, I'm happy to look at Prospect Lake being a hub zone for pickup and drop off if that helps. Maybe there's other organizations here that might have other centralized locations for pickup and drop off of these types of packages. And then I think what I'm noticing in some other collectives is really being honest and transparent about your resources you have available and the gaps and needs that you have, and us trying to problem solve. I saw some really cool things happening to support elders in Alert Bay around food security, because someone had an excess amount of seeds they weren't going to use and others had transportation up to Alert Bay, and all of a sudden a gap in a remote community was solved just by saying, we're not doing any cooking programs right now, we have all these seeds, here you go. So I think also us getting to the nitty-gritties at times with people that are interested to really share what resources do you have and also what are the needs, and let's do a little bit of a crossover.
Awesome. Maybe we need to start a little classifieds ads section of the newsletter or something.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, I was not as eloquently, but I was going to say what say what Karina said. But yeah, again, just I know we've always been doing this and kind of been that hub and that resource for a lot of people, but I think in this time that should be elevated. And from my standpoint, when people come and they talk in these conversations and stuff, a lot of people only focus on the positives, right? They're like, yeah, it's great, it's going well, it's like blah blah blah, but what is, we all learn from the challenges, right? So I think just being more open around what the challenges within our collaborative and within our organizations, what those challenges are and how we can overcome them, or if you had the challenge and how you did overcome it, and those elements, I feel like just generally, and this has happened throughout life, but yeah, people only focus on the positives, right, and what's going well. But the positives are, we can't recreate the positives, right? But we all share the same challenges. And if we can collaborate on those and think of new ideas, then I think that would be really beneficial. Because again, we do all work with pretty much the same people, right? So we are, yes, we're large, but there's also only a small number of community members that we're all trying to serve. So if we can all serve them by kind of sharing the challenges that we've faced, I think that would be really, really positive and really beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. That actually is a great segue to my next question for the panel, which was, what are you finding is the hardest part of all of this? So whether that's personally or organizationally, like what are you struggling with the most?
Good one.
For me, I thought I considered myself an introvert for sure, and then now I'm realizing how much I crave that social interaction, and I didn't realize how much I spent half of my day, maybe that's why I didn't have time to do anything, but to checking in with all of our clients, our volunteers, just my staff, and just, you know, doing a quick like 5 minutes, honestly, but every single day. I didn't realize how much I miss that, and how much I miss our clients and miss sharing parts of my life with them, and I'm struggling with that a lot. And just like I didn't realize how much of a community hub it was even for me, and how I felt part of our own community, and so struggling to kind of keep that up and be in touch with people that I'm used to seeing on a regular basis, and now not. And it's, yeah, that's been the hardest part, I think, for me, is not seeing everyone, which is probably pretty standard, but I didn't realize how much I missed seeing people. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm a big hugger. I miss hugging people.
Totally, right? Like, I don't want to do a toe tap anymore.
Okay, Karina, you look like you're ready.
I think on a personal front, you know, as many who may have kids, it's not easy working full time at home with 2 young kids and feeling like you can be there for everybody, be there for our community, be there for our staff, be there for my kids, my partner, my dog. So that's a personal one for sure that I know and many are echoing and trying to figure it out. But there's not a lot of pivots in that realm. It's just just get it done. I would say I definitely agree where Alana's coming from. I'm really missing our participants. And I think after one phone call, the thing that really hits home is folks living with physical challenges, just knowing that that level of isolation is that much more prevalent, and that a lot of the things coming out right now are not considering adaptations or modifications outside of, you know, groups like this that are doing some amazing content. And then also, you know, people are trying to engage with, let's say, folks on the autism spectrum or people who communicate differently. And, you know, a Zoom call or a digital framework to be like, how you doing? It just doesn't meet the needs. And so what I'm finding is that people are just not really meeting the needs, and maybe because we just don't know how, but we're just not able to meet the needs of the vulnerable sectors that we all support. And that pulls my heartstring every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole other question about that, but we'll let Chris go on this question first, and then maybe we can circle back to that.
Yeah, for me, again, this is across the board, and I know everyone's thinking about this, especially listening to journalists and whatnot, trying to ask questions of the politicians. It's the unknown, right? It's we don't know what is happening next week or in 2 months or in 3 months or 4 months. So it's really hard to plan. So after this call, I have a call with one of the school districts to talk about, well, what can I plan for September? Usually right now I'd be talking to all of the schools about how we're going to be in there, what teachers we're going to be working with, what kind of students they might have. But we just can't do that. And even yeah, unknown of what a summer camp's going to look like before that, if at all. It's just really hard to try and do anything from a programming perspective when you don't know anything. So that's just been the challenge for me. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, it's Brian Gray with Play Beyond Expectations. And being the little guy in the group and being recreation center based, obviously the program shut down. One of the concerns that I haven't heard addressed yet, but I think it's really important now and forever going forward after is, well, I'll put it as a question and then maybe offer some solutions. But the question would be, what are we doing? What can be done to facilitate participant to participant support and encouragement? That's it.
So really facilitating that connection between individual participants.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Which of our panelists would like to start off with that?
I can share a little bit about what we're doing, and I would say that there's always room to grow. We, you know, are heavily relying a bit on that digital platform for the participant to participant engagement. One of our programs is a wilderness school, and then we also have an open adventure program where a lot of the members that we share are, like our participants that we share, would fall under that. So creating a bit of a interactive opportunity. So as an example for like the youth, We did kind of an in-home fun scavenger hunt. So they had to like run and find something and bring it back. But if you add complexities or physical limitations to that, that activity would have to be modified. But people found it was playful. So again, a little bit different from what we do, but people were craving seeing one another. So I think that's a really good point, Brian, is that participant to participant, they really missed seeing one another. We aren't in a place where we can set them up to go and have those conversations unless they have that contact information with one another outside of our organization based on privacy considerations. So we always have to kind of be the mediator of that. And then we're looking at some more virtual types of engagement that we can do in small groups that, again, can connect some of our participants together. And then if we can go back later, you know, and use a little bit of the Prospect Lake site, then we're hoping to also have maybe very small groups within COVID restrictions. So maybe 2 people and really start to also have that face-to-face engagement. But that's probably at least a couple months away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Karina.
Anyone else, Alana or Chris, want to share? Or if anyone else on the call is doing some things that you want to share as well, we'd be really happy to hear from you. So I know lots of you are in positions where you've been also pivoting and evolving how you do business. So now's the time to also share those, or if you can answer any of the questions that have come up or you have additional questions, please feel free to jump in.
We, when this originally happened, we sent out like a member survey asking them kind of how we could serve them better and what they would like. And someone suggested having like a member forum or a member something where they could communicate with each other in a way. And I thought that was a good idea. We haven't kind of explored it more, but I kind of realized that, you know, not only are we missing Move as a whole and all that kind of stuff, but they're missing, like you said, that participant to participant with each other. So now kind of looking at ways of how can we, you know, create a Zoom call where like, okay, there's, you know, 10 minutes of a yoga session, but then really it's more about them facilitating with each other. And so trying to explore that more, but we haven't looked into it 100%, but yeah, I agree. It's important for sure. Yeah.
Super. Mark, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I can. Hey guys, I can add in a little bit to Brian's question there about facilitating participant connection. I'm Mark. I'm from Lifetime Networks. Specifically, at least on the programming side, I'm the supervisor for Inclusion Works. So you guys might have heard of us. Yeah, we're doing a lot of virtual programming. Sort of when we were scrambling a couple of weeks ago, we decided to pursue with Zoom, but using an account with Zoom. So just one more level of privacy. The nice thing about having an account like that is our Zoom room number and join URL is the same. So that's been really helpful for our participants and parents to streamline. We do have a password as well, so it's another level of protection. It's kind of the best that we can do. Yeah, we have about 4 hours of virtual programming a day. Zoom has been really nice for our fitness, so home exercise and Zumba. What's neat with Zoom is you can have a share screen, so participants can see what the workout is. On the Zumba side of it, the share screen's been really nice because it's actually quite clear for the music to come through. You know, getting specific adaptations for people is pretty difficult, but we're getting people to move, so that's nice. Specifically to participant connection, one thing that's really been successful for us is we've been having what's called an open Zoom room. So we schedule for an hour and we have a staff sign in, turn their screen off, turn their microphone off, and we allow our participants to come in and just sort of explore. You know, I'm going to be blunt, it was pretty awkward the first couple times, I'm not going to lie to you, as you guys can all imagine, and it's still kind of awkward, but it's been pretty neat. We have a lot of buy-in from our group. They've really bought into yeah, to sort of being bold and trying things on Zoom. It's a neat opportunity. 6 weeks ago, I don't think any of our participants would have jumped in to do any of this, but now they're, you know, now they're switching they're going to different Zoom rooms. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, the share screen has been really helpful for us to for our scholastic stuff as well as our fitness stuff for people to really see. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And I'm working with an organization in Edmonton as well that's been doing sort of those curated rooms where kids can just kind of connect with each other and have a bit of free time or free play, if you will, within those spaces. Other panelists, do you want to jump in on any of that?
I just put a question though. If I can put the folks from Fit Nation on the spot, I would love to hear from you guys about how things are going around that participant interaction side of things.
Welcome, Daniel.
Is that me?
That's
Yeah.
you, Daniel.
All right, 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, just a quick little intro. My name's Daniel Young Mercer, and I'm Vishka and Gitsan ancestry from the Northwest BC. I've been working with Indigenous Sport, Physical Activity, and Recreation Council. We call ourselves iSpark for short. Going into 5 years pretty soon. Once we get to November, that's my full 4 years of experience with iSpark. I started off a small community recreation coordinator with a program called Fit Nation, which is what I'll be sharing with you some successes. And very happy to be running this. I ran this community program for 2 years in Kitimat Village, which brought me to where I am now in my career, where I'm able to now support a whole province full of our Fit Nation leaders, which is what I used to be in my home community. Yeah, so the Fit Nation program, 8 years running. We've trained over 125 Fit Nation leaders, and each leader, they attend a 3-day workshop where they learn how to run this program for their community. So in this manual, there's over 180 movements, and it's introductory, intermediate, advanced, as well as modifications with wall and chair movements. So our most recent training forum, we trained 18 leaders in December of 2019. So we're in the phase now of how are we doing the best we can in supporting those trained leaders from that Fit Nation leader training. And by supporting them, it gives them the motivation and confidence to stay inspired to help their participants. So what we've been doing to make sure our leaders are doing okay is been running weekly Fit Nation Zoom workouts for our Fit Nation leaders. And for example, today at 12 o'clock, we're hosting a live Zoom workout for our Fit Nation leaders. And we get a really good attendance. And we still get leaders joining us who were trained back in 2013. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're just taking advantage of this moment we're in right now. I was chatting with a colleague. He said we have to do Zoom, and I mentioned no, we don't have to. We get to. It just gives us a new opportunity to expand how we're supporting our leaders, and it might be something that we'll continue to do as we fast forward to the future, and when things are all well, we might continue to still do our live Zoom workouts with our leaders. So we've had, this will be our third live Zoom workout coming up over the last month, and we get an average of 20 Fit Nation leaders from dating back the past 8 years. And that's kind of just motivates our leaders. And we also encourage them to reach out to us on how to use the Zoom platform so they can host their own workouts for their participants. And a little bigger project that we've been working on over the past couple weeks was all right, we have our 125 Fit Nation leaders since the program started. How do we keep supporting them and giving them that opportunity to master their Fit Nation's leadership skills? So we chose 4 Fit Nation leaders to star in a Fit Nation workout at home video. And while we're speaking right now, we're just launching an introductory workout, which is led by one of our leaders trained a few years ago named Justin Kelly, who lives in the Hope area. And I can share our YouTube channel with all of you on the call today. And it's basically like I explained it to my friends. It's like a Billy Blanks Tybo follow the workout kind of video, or like Jillian Michaels follow the DVD workout. And we're just so happy to see our leaders on the screen. And we just get them to send us their recording. And we're lucky enough to have a video editor, make it all high level with our branding and with our funders logos attached to it. And we add music to the background, and I can't wait to show you guys the final product. So we're just doing the best we can to do what we're doing right now, connecting over Zoom, webcam, supporting our leaders. And when it comes to sharing the wealth with our partners, one of our main partners are the BC Association of Aboriginal Friendship Centers, and we always share. For example, they'll get our YouTube link and our promotions, and they'll share with their network throughout the province. First Nation Health Authority, they're also including our Fit Nation workouts in their monthly newsletters, as well as Métis Nation BC, and a list of other organizations that we interact with throughout the year. Another kind of success is our audience is Indigenous members of BC, so First Nation, Métis, Inuit. However, a lot of our Fit Nation leaders are in mainstream school districts, so the Fit Nation movement videos are now being shared, we know, in School District 74 in the interior, and as well as School District 62, Souk Langford School District, kind of as a supporting resource for teachers who may be doing physical activity teachings online. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
And the motto is anyone, anytime, anywhere, correct?
Yeah, anyone, anytime, anywhere, and it really gives us a chance to prove that right now with what we are offering. So we're really really busy behind the scenes. That's more than I thought we'd be, just because our programs where we gather have all been suspended. But that means we got to start from scratch on these new initiatives. So it kind of helps the brain to be really busy right now with work. And I can definitely share with Andrea our YouTube channel, as well as other promotions that you guys can share within your networks as well.
Yeah, we can put that in our next newsletter, Daniel. That would be great. Perfect. I'm going to open it up for others to ask questions or to share their experiences on how things are going, and just a huge thanks to Daniel for sharing. Anyone have other burning questions?
I just had an idea, and I don't know if anyone else has done this in terms of the social interaction piece. Is I've participated in a few drive-by birthday parade things. So I don't know if people could do that. I know it would work for children with their parents driving, if you can kind of congregate in a parking lot and wind down the windows and shout at each other. Don't know if anyone wants to organize that, but that might be an opportunity for the kids to see each other, the youth to see each other again, but from a distance in a relatively safe way. I was also just looking up car soccer because we have a giant soccer ball, but then I didn't want to damage people's cars. But just trying to think of just things like that, right? That might be a way to, from Brian's question, that actual interaction between people without a screen could be an idea if someone wants to organize that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find really interesting in all of this is the amount of screen time and trying to navigate that both personally, but then also, you know, for my daughter, because I'm in a similar situation to Karina where we're homeschooling and trying to figure out what that looks like. But, you know, for our members as well and the clients that we're serving, like we're spending a lot of time on screens. And so what does that look like and how do we have some other options to that?
If I can respond to my question,
Yeah,
just a
absolutely. Go ahead,
suggestion, and I'm thinking primarily like any schoolyard, any parking lot. Karina, like the Power to Be site allows some significant options. But I thought that, for example, if we had something simple and quick, you put up anywhere, any kind of a flag space, a marker that a participant can stand in. So you file in, you do all the spacing, and you go to the spots that are 6 or 8 feet apart, and you do, let's make it simple. Suppose it's simply a basketball drill. You're just, participants are just passing back and forth across a circle. But they can't leave their area, their 6-foot circle that they're in, and that's 6 feet apart from the friend, which means they're maybe 6 or 8 feet apart when they're catching the ball. And I think it's important that we have an outer circle so that kids aren't running together to get a ball that's gone sort of out of bounds. The out of bounds could be a perimeter of parents and staff. So if you think about a circle that's maybe 30 feet across with another circle that's maybe 60 feet across with a perimeter of staff and parents who can, only the closest one can go for the ball, but it allows exercise, the interaction, it's safe distancing and all that. And it's just a simple suggestion. But I think within this, I love the attitude on everybody's part that this is an opportunity to take the challenges. And as Karina and others mentioned, there is the challenge for our participants and the participants' family. And it's always neat because my programs always allow, always neat to see how the parents or the support workers are surprised their client or their child can do. But it opens their mind to possibilities. So I think an important ongoing benefit when we create the solutions and activity for now, and some kind of scale, the key thing is that it creates some more open-mindedness for home. And the results over the last 5 years have been that parents have been really surprised at how that skill, that flexibility that they acquire in a sport activity and how they've improved has also improved their attitude and capability at home that parents did not anticipate. And so I'm just throwing it out there. I agree with Daniel. I agree with everybody that it is an opportunity to reevaluate, recreate, and discover some new things we can do in the process.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brian. I'm going to encourage, if folks on the call have an idea about one sort of how to create some safe distancing in-person opportunities, providing that we're allowed to do that, obviously, then feel free to share those to us and we can put them into the next newsletter, which will be on the 15th of May. And then as well, any things that you're doing for around parenting supports as well, because I think that's another piece where folks are challenged in terms of, especially if they've got a child with higher needs, sort of that respite piece often is not happening the way it might have happened previously. So I think that's a big challenge for families as well right now. So we just have a couple more minutes, so I'm just gonna ask if anyone else has any other questions or folks wanna share any other pieces, and otherwise I'll turn it back to our panel for wrap-up comments. No additional questions? Oh, Mark, go ahead.
I'll just kind of add one more thing. We do have a very heavy virtual schedule, but we're also we have been doing some very refined one-to-one visits with some clients who are comfortable with that. Essentially, the Coles Notes protocol, we've been meeting at the property line and going for a walk, maintaining our physical distancing. We're not providing any rides. We're not playing any sports, sharing any balls or anything like that. We're simply just walking and talking. Again, doesn't meet the full need, no, but it is something. And then just on the Zoom side, one thing that we found, at least to bring people back, is we bring in a lot of humor. I think I've got 4 characters now, different characters that show up on Zoom, and yeah, adding the theatrics. We have an odd fashion show every week. Yeah, and we take screenshots. We do another really cool one with the screen share is we have a Happy Mistakes art hour, where we use the screen share to do like a drawing video, and we all make the drawing together. Yeah, so it's just humor, and then our guys are definitely, the Zoom fatigue is real for us and for our participants. Another thing that we've been doing is we challenge the participants to Zoom us from different rooms. We challenge them to Zoom standing up. We've even encouraged to Zoom, laying down on your side if you want, just for variety. And yeah, it seems to be okay. But again, that's just focusing on the positives, but sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mark, for sharing. So I'm going to turn it back to each of our panelists to just give a couple wrap-up comments, and that'll take us home for today. Lana, do you want to go first?
Sure. I've found this really helpful, even though I'm on the panelists. I've found listening to everyone, as always, whenever we have a OneAbility meeting, I take away a lot from it when I leave, and I feel kind of almost refreshed and recharged to kind of see what's going out there and what people are suggesting, and take that into move. And I find lots of value in that. And yeah, this has been really good for me. So I'm happy to be a part of this. And I can sympathize that it's definitely a hard time, but like everyone's been saying, like opportunity, and just kind of really honing in on that. And yep, there's some negative sides to this, and it's hardship, and I understand all that, but definitely focusing on opportunity and shifting that gear and kind of what that looks like for all of your organizations. Yeah.
Super. Thanks, Lana.
Yeah.
I have definitely really valued this. I think it's, thank you, Andrea, for coordinating it, and Nicole, and just getting people together. I think it's been a long time that we've been in a larger forum with multiple members, and I would, really like to just emphasize, I think there's a lot of really great strength and great opportunity to learn from our mistakes, to learn how to problem solve, and also how to, as the catchphrase goes, how to pivot. So I'd be curious to see, kind of to help us learn from those on the stewardship side of OneAbility, where do we need to pivot? So what are some emphasis maybe in those working groups, in our constellations, or some of the priorities that we've had this year where maybe we need to think differently, think more collaboratively? I've loved hearing, other people speaking today as well outside of us panelists around some of the creative activity ideas, ways that we could maybe collaborate to really create something for our participants, knowing that we do have multiple of the same ones. So I liked, Chris's idea potentially of us going all together into like a large parking lot, likely Pisces, to maybe see one another, because I think seeing is, and hearing people's laugh and seeing people's smiles goes a really long way. But also, yeah, taking a minute to recognize the silver linings or a positive that's happened, which can hopefully then motivate us for our next day.
Awesome. Thanks, Karina. Chris?
Tailgate parties all the way. Yeah, I've really enjoyed hearing Mark and Brian and Daniel in their input. Thank you for Stacy as well to add in there. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of innovation coming out of this time, right? And we may not see that right now because we're all in the middle of it, but I think down the line we will see it. From Brian's idea there of kind of socially distanced activities, there are more ideas out there, especially using something like a hockey stick, like passing a hockey ball back and forth. So you have your own stick and you pass it back and forth. So they're the kind of ideas that we are thinking of, and a lot of recreation centers and whatnot are thinking of as to how we can get people together again physically, but still keep ourselves apart. And I think that's going to be this next phase. Like this kind of first phase has been, okay, how do we do online? This next phase is all about how can we get back together and be active and be together, but from a safe distance. And that is more challenging than the online stuff. The online stuff made sense, right? It's like, yep, just do it online. Getting back together is going to be really difficult.
And I think, Chris, you bring up a good point. We should learn from one another. So if you discover great parameters, let's share that. If there's new policies or processes that people are gathering from maybe other industry leaders, I think this is a great platform for us to share that, so that Alana doesn't have to sit by herself creating the same thing that maybe Chris has just created. So I would love to see OneAbility as we're thinking about the new integration models. Maybe we're having a bit of a hub of sharing some of those policies and processes and procedures that we're developing, so we don't have to do that alone, and that you're not just recreating the wheel again and again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Karina. And certainly in our next newsletter, we can add a classified section, we can add an additional resources section, we can add a new ideas section, whatever folks feel like they want to share, we can put into there. So you can share those with us on oneabilityvictoria@gmail.com. And Nicole and I will pull that stuff together and send it out in the next newsletter. So as a reminder, you're going to get a survey after today's session, and we would love to hear more about what ideas you'd have in terms of topics you want going forward, what went well today, what we can learn from, and how we all kind of continue to support each other and do better together. And I just want to do a thank you to Alana, Karina, and Chris for being our panelists and being brave enough to try this with us for our first go. And also recognizing Mark, Brian, and Daniel for sharing with us along the way. And a huge thank you to Nicole, who's been in the background putting all of the logistics together for this and supporting me over the last few weeks as I've transitioned into this role. So big thanks, and look forward to seeing you all again in a month. Save the date for the 29th of May. Right now we have that scheduled for 9:30 to 11 as well, but if we get feedback that people would prefer different days, we will reevaluate. So all about trying to support our collective members. So thank you so much. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
God bless.